This is Abnormal Entertainment.
Hey, no te preocupes si no te aprueban. Cuando te critiquen, tú solo di. Soy yo.
Hey everybody, this is Daniel Garza and welcome to another episode of Put It Together. I want to start by thanking my producer, Mr. Kevin Moyers, for all his work and his support. Thank you, sir. I invite everybody to visit us at abnormalentertainment.com where you can find all the podcasts, different interests, different type of shows. Go check it out. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Either under my name, Daniel Garza, or Lil Mexican, Lilmesican. So check that out. Today I am live, sitting here. Well, I guess I'm always live, but we are sitting in the office while it's still functioning this morning at the Radar office in Santa Ana with Javier Saucedo. How you doing, Javier?
Okay.
So let's start by tell us a little bit about how you put it together. How did you come about to being here? Where do you come from?
Okay.
Who are you?
Okay, so my name is Javier Saucedo. I am the project manager here at Radar. Radar stands for Rendering Access to Disease Prevention, Advocacy, and Retention. So it's a mouthful. But we're part of AIDS Services Foundation Orange County, where they're only off-site outside of their Irvine office. AIDS Services Foundation has been here for about over 30 years, serving as the one of the AIDS organizations in Orange County.
Right.
So it was, about 2 years ago. About 2 years ago, I'd met up with Gabe, who works here, and he's been working for AIDS Services Foundation for a while. And he mentioned to me that they had applied for, and were getting a grant from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, from CDC, to open a site in Santa Ana to target Latinos, specifically men who have sex with men, gay, bisexual, or just men who don't identify but are having sex with the population, to open an office for testing, prevention, and treatment. And at the time I was working in Long Beach, but I grew up here in Santa Ana. I'm, product of here, and there's never been a program like this. So I was like, oh, I have to be on board to this. This is my calling. This is what I want to do. So it was just at first it was just kind of a no-brainer to apply. I applied. I didn't get a call back. So I was like, okay, maybe not that. So I originally applied for the program manager position, and I didn't get it. And I had heard from Gabe that someone has already hired for it. So I saw that they had a number of other positions, and I was like, I just need to be a part of that group. Like I need to be doing work in Orange County with HIV.
We can footnote that Santa Ana has a large Latino Hispanic population, correct?
Very, very large. Oh, yeah. So Orange County, even though Orange County is very seen as a very conservative, very suburban, and the representation of Orange County is like Newport Beach, but Santa Ana is the heart of Orange County. Everything is centrally located in Santa Ana mostly, and Santa Ana is I believe it's their studies and things have called it one of the most Spanish speaking cities in the nation. Also, one of the cities that houses the most first generation Mexican immigrants. So Santa Ana does my parents grew up here, and it's changed a lot, and the population has gone a lot bigger, and Santa Ana, in certain neighborhoods, and most neighborhoods, I would say, you can get around with not speaking English. It's a very Mexican community. When I've been away from here, I'm it's culture shock. I spent a summer in Michigan, and I was like, where are the Mexicans? Where's the Mexican food? Where's the, donde está la panadería? Where's where are the things that I grew up with? It's just and it wasn't, it's so normalized here. This is just where I grew up. But when you're when you're on the other, Midwest or East Coast, it's not the same. So we do, we do have a lot out here.
I'll tell you, me living in Laguna Beach, I'll come to Santa Ana for food and just to get acclimated again. It's okay, you're not white, Daniel. You're not white. So you applied for another position.
Yeah.
And then
I got on board. The project had started. They had just scouted the office. We were working out of Irvine, trying to get it all together. So it was a very hands-on, getting everything, and we're in the nonprofit world. We don't have consultants and people doing all of this stuff for you. It's no, we ordered the supplies, we brought it in. We were working, for a while before we got internet because of the building. We were working on what do you call it? Like a wireless hotspot. We didn't have phones
really
for a while.
Problem.
Yeah. So we were really, it's a very, we have all of it now, but starting it was very, branding, creating a name for ourselves. Like, it was just kind of everything, which was really exciting to come on board and help with the creation of all of this. And then probably about, maybe a year ago, which is kind of 6 months into the program, the manager that was here got into a doctorate program, and she decided to go for it, so she left her position. So then I applied for it, I got it, so I've been the program manager for about a year now.
Wow. It's really interesting that for folks who have been following the show for a while, ASF is a pretty large organization, that you guys still came out as a grassroots program. Does that make sense? They let you from scratch. They didn't say, this is what you're going to be. They were like, develop it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that it also, we're the only program that focuses on an actual community. Like, everybody's focused on everyone, and when you get to more public health terms and things, you're looking at specific communities, and with these specific communities, that are higher risk. So last year, I think CDC came out with numbers of the growing numbers of people that will be affected by HIV. Or infected with HIV, and Latinos and African American men who have sex with men came out at those higher rates. So the focus is giving money to organizations to start, and I think it was very intentional for ASF to look at, be intentional of where they're located and, who they hire and how to come about it. And then for letting us do that groundwork. So, and I think it gives all this this ownership and this social responsibility of of building this and making this happen, but no, outside of that, obviously we have a lot of agency, the agency itself is we're employees of it, we're just off-site, but it's been also very good for us to brand ourselves, and we go through, we have, it's different, because their office has been there for 30 years and this office is fairly new, and the focus is different here. So everything is a little more targeted, our advertising, our Facebook, we want it to be people who are that you see the people that we're serving and that we're represented, and that we hire from the community. That's been the biggest part of that.
It really is important. I used to be one of those people that said, I don't need to see somebody Hispanic on TV to realize that I'm valuable, or I don't need to see them in movies or in posters. But as I've gotten older, I realize, being an HIV positive man, that I want to see my face, not my face, you know what I mean, something that resembles me on an ad, and usually I don't. But with your stuff, and we're looking at one of the flyers right now, there's a Hispanic man on there, and you're like, oh wow, that could be me. Of course, the guy has more muscles than I do. But that could be me if I worked out. Yeah. That's really important. I think that's really cool about you guys, that a Latin man or woman could look at this and go, they're going to take care of me and my cultural needs, my religious needs. Does that play into it a little bit?
Definitely. I think the culture part is it's a very, and we have very distinct population here in Orange County. We have we have the recent monolingual immigrants, and and all of the staff is bilingual. So, and then there's, someone like me whose parents are immigrants and, first generation here, and maybe speak more English than we do Spanish, but we still, we're still very in touch with our culture. And then we have the second, third generation who might not speak Spanish, and, so it's a very diverse, Latino population, but it has been this, this need for us to be represented, at least here. When you go to LA, you have so many programs like Bienestar. If you think of HIV in LA, in Latinos, you think of Bienestar, and you think of there's other projects, and there's so many projects in LA. But in Orange County, when you think of it, it's they all serve the population, but there's no one who's focused on it. And when we have numbers from CDC that looks 1 in 4 Latinos, men who have sex with men in their lifetime, will acquire HIV. It's very scary to, you know, and I mean, the thing is, like, it's not just prevention, because a lot of prevention programs are just like, you know, you don't, but, you know, we're all at risk, and, you know, when the risk is there, if you acquire HIV, then it's getting on treatment, getting support, like being, you know, being on the other side of it, because a lot of prevention programs, it's very like, do or die, or, you know, like the whole be safe or be sorry, and like, to me, that's not the vision that we want. That we want an all-inclusive, you know, program that's focused on prevention, but it's also focused on treatment and support, and, you know, in a kind of a community space. Like, it's because it's all over, you know. We're all contributing, you know, HIV positive, HIV negative. We all need to contribute to end the epidemic. Like, really, that's the end all. And as Latinos, it's very hard to talk about sex and culture because of religion. You know, it's very difficult to talk about those things. So when if you don't talk about sexuality, you don't talk about sex, then you can't talk about HIV, you can't talk about STDs, you can't talk about all of the risks that come with it. So we have these cultural and religious barriers to talk about these things. So, you know, so even then, you know, we try to integrate ourselves to the community where people can have these conversations with us while we're somewhere, you know, health fairs, college campuses, bars and clubs, you know. So it's very, we try to be kind of on the ground as much as we can.
Yeah, and it's interesting to say that, because Hispanic people want as far as my experience has been, people want information, people want education, but they don't want to talk about the sexual part. They don't want to talk about the sexuality part of it. And I always think about it, and I'm like, it's like frijoles en la tortilla, since we're doing a Hispanic Latino thing. I could say peanut butter and jelly, but no. It's like frijoles and salsa, like they go together. And how have you guys managed to start opening the conversation?
You know, it's been through the advertising, through the staff, through integrating ourselves with, you know, with different organizations. You know, we in the past we've worked with the Consulado Mexicano here. You know, just been building those relationships with all the other agencies. I mean, I grew up here, and prior to this, I've done a lot of kind of groundwork with like family acceptance, and, you know, incorporating family members, like families and friends, like type of P-flag group. That's kind of what I did. So it's been very intentional for all of us to just kind of like start having those things, and like, you know, and saying like, you know, we are serving Latinos, we are here, you know, like this is our focus, like showing that, so then people start like, oh, like, you know, like they don't know that Latinos are getting infected at higher numbers, you know. So we're starting kind of that conversation and the visibility, because visibility is key, you know, like you mentioned, like we don't see ourselves represented, you know, in the overall media. So when we think of HIV education, or when we think of HIV anything, we're not represented either. So it's like, so representing ourselves and being like, we're also part of these spaces, we're also affected by HIV, we're also, you know, susceptible to all of these things as people living, you know, in this nation. So let's, you know, let's be represented, and let's try to, you know, empower our people and better our people, and like, you know, build each other up, you know.
And which is one of the things that I think culturally, it's always been said that Latinos, when they come to the States, there's that hermandad, that solidarity that you have in Mexico gets lost in translation. People don't have it here. Definitely. So I've always felt like every time, like every so years, maybe every 5 or so years, we want to target the Latino community and basically start back from zero and trying to open the communications. How can I put the question? Are there any past lessons from you or ASF or another organization that you like stood on and said, okay, we're not going to do that?
You know, It's hard. It's hard to say because there wasn't very much like foundational work. The foundational, I don't remember. I mean, I remember ASF used to have another offsite in Costa Mesa when I was a teenager. It was an empowerment site. It's like a younger prevention. That's what they were focused on. And I got tested there, but there wasn't that connection. ASF has been doing work with Latinos for a long time, though. They do house Somos, and Somos is, focused on HIV
I
prevention.
interviewed them a couple of years ago. Yeah.
So, and they've been in the community for about, I think, like 10 years or so. So they have, and their program is a little, it's focused on Latinos, specifically in Spanish, which is awesome. It's great because a lot of times, you might, you either immigrated, like they immigrated at a young age or, or later, and they're here and, they came out here and they're getting into kind of their sexual, their sexual health and everything. So that was definitely, I've always had that respect for ASF because I've known about Somos, and through some of the work that I did here, like knowing that, that I started that me and my friends started an organization because there wasn't anything to represent us as Latinos, So I know at least here, and I do kind of give and take from other people that I've learned. When you start kind of with activism, in whatever spectrum of activism, you kind of get into these pockets of like, when you think of like, when you think, whatever the subject is, there's like go-to people and there's go-to things. And I'll say that a lot of that work is all like very grassroots. It's not like organizations. By the time organizations get to it or highlight it, it's usually taking from people who are doing it not to get paid. They're doing it from, from the heart. So I mean, I come from that mentality of like using the own community to promote, using the like word of mouth and things work a lot different here in Orange County than they do anywhere else. So it's,
excuse me.
So I mean, going back to,
excuse me.
Listen, it's very, it's a give and take, and then you see other organizations, and, I think another foundational thing has been like kind of the African American movement with HIV, like, seeing them using their own culture, their own images, their own things, their own coalitions, their own everything is really inspirational just as like, because there's so many intersections between, I feel, the Black community and the Latino community. A lot of times we don't see it. Right. And sometimes I feel like we're kind of pinned up against each other, and it's like this kind of, and it's not. And it's like, I'm like, I think we should all be a lot more united. And sometimes, you get the like, well, why are you only focused on Latinos? And why aren't you, and the thing is that we serve everyone. We do. Like, it's not, I don't like to refuse services to anyone. That's not what we're about. But if the focus is Latinos because of the growing number here and the growing number of people with HIV, and if we can, if we have something that's focused on us, it might be easier for us to access it. Yeah. I don't necessarily think that everyone knows about us, and it takes time. It takes time, and I feel like sometimes, people aren't as connected, or, or situational, or, they have 2-3 jobs, and they're, trying to balance their life, and, and sexual risk and sexual health might not be in the back of their minds or getting tested. So it's definitely something that we know, that, we locate our office kind of somewhere central to where they might be located. We go to different events and places where they might be located, the staff has the flexibility of meeting with clients in other places. So, it's kind of.
Well, one thing you brought up just now, risk. And that was on my mind when we started the conversation. Now that we talked about the African American community and the Latino community and risk, there's always a talk about the down low in the African American community. Mm-hmm. But people don't realize that there is a down low community within the Latinos. Especially because I remember from working in South Texas, migrant workers who come temporarily and have boyfriends on the American side and have their wives and children on the Mexico side, and they're living a DL life. What information or what have you learned about that?
It's been, working in this field, you kind of got every story, you got to see so many different people, but yeah, no, it is, I think the DL lifestyle, is been very, like, centered around African American men,
Right.
And it's been kind of glamorized and popularized, and people are talking about it, and it's a very big thing. But I mean, these communities kind of exist everywhere, and it is with a growing number. When you talk about Latinos, it's a lot. It could be situational, like you're only working with men, you only see other men, and your wife's not here, and you think that might not be cheating, and you might or might you probably enjoy it, or there's definitely people that because of their religious beliefs, or because they might be shunned by family friends, that have a wife and kids and then are having sex with other men, and would never think of identifying as a gay man or going to gay places, or but they're still contributing, and at that point they're not only contributing to the infection of other men, but also their wives, and I mean, I've had several, we have cases kind of all the time, and it's hard to kind of to reach out to this community. One of the ways that we have is through when we post ads on Craigslist. So, that's where kind of a lot of the people who might not want to be on the apps, because, there's really, I mean, bars and clubs and cruising spots and things, they're kind of, they're getting, it's a generational thing. I think there's a complete kind of, it's a dying thing, now it's just like, it's very instant, but at least with Craigslist, there's still a number of men that there's more of a discreet nature to, responding to someone's ad.
That's pretty original. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. So that's kind of where we get a lot of people, and then we get a lot of people who hear about us and then still don't want to identify, and we're testing them, and then, and I'm like, and we have to also, like, culturally, but even as people, like, normalize them, like, oh, I'm like, so they're like, oh, do you have sex with men or women or both? It's very, like, it's not like, are you gay? Or like something that would make them feel like, and a lot of times they'll deny it, but they're very, like, worried and things. I'm like, well, from what you've told me, your risk is relatively low, do you want to tell me why are you so worried? Why is there this worry? And then, then it starts, well, this one time, or this coworker, or and this stories, like, as the sessions get there. And I mean, I think they have to be at a level that are comfortable enough telling you about it. And a lot of the times, like, other providers might not have that, and they might not see themselves in the person. And I mean, a lot of times it's just like, we can only be there to listen, and we can only ask so many questions, but we do eventually, or after the test, they're like, well, this happened, like, after they get that relief from whatever it may be. So it is, or even sometimes, at the bars and the clubs, you got people that are just there, for the nightlife, and they're not, and I don't think everyone has to be an active member of the gay community,
Right.
It's really, I don't think it's, I mean, for some people it's not necessary. They don't need that social support. They don't need to, sometimes, I mean, people just don't identify with things, and it's fine, but also, like, you need to take care of your health, and you need to take care of your partner. So a lot of the times that's, like, when you have worrisome people, and they're like, I'm like, if you can't protect yourself, like, if you can't protect your wife, you can protect yourself when you have other partners, so you can protect her. Because a lot of the times it's like, well, if I got something, my wife's gonna get it,
Right.
So
But don't you think that, let me go back to the identify and the gay thing. The gay thing. That thing that guys have. It's interesting because for folks that are not in the testing, or in the HIV community, or in the nonprofit and this kind of services, they don't know about the men who have sex with men, the MSM thing.
Yeah.
It's just they're gay.
Yeah.
But it's so tricky to throw that word out, because you can lose a client. They can walk out immediately.
Definitely.
For some folks, just the idea of identifying themselves. I mean, they were born men. They're men. They might have always been the dominant partner.
Yeah.
So in their world, I'm not gay because I'm not giving. I'm just receiving, per se, oral sex or whatever. So and for anybody listening, no, we're not saying gay is a bad word, but in this scenario, in this space, gay can be so detrimental to people's, I guess, ego or morale or...
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's kind of the overall perception of what gay is, and we all kind of have a different, I mean, obviously to me, like someone who's, came out like after high school and, it's been kind of a part of like these spaces and organizations and things, like, I'm like, to me, and also my world is a very gay world. Like, all of my friends are gay, like my roommate's gay, like, a lot of the people I work with are gay. Like, so to me, it's a very normalized thing. Like everyone knows I'm not closeted. Like, these things are very, but for someone I can see who, like, has, if you have a wife and you have kids and, and you just don't see yourself, like, you've kind of positioned yourself to like not, to maybe repress this side of you and not, it's hard, it's tough, and it's something that just we see, and I think as visibility and as more people come out and as kind of things, people stop, like thinking of gay people in one way, and I think, also, I mean, and for Latinos, I mean, we go back with it, like, it's like, with like, even like with, in machismo, even, like, it's an integral part of even like gay, like men overall, and I think that's people forget that. Yeah. That gay men are men also, and that men, that as a lot of those ideas that we grew up with are still prevalent, are still ingrained in us, they're kind of hard to fight. So, even like, I mean, as we come out and as we do things, and even as I see the levels of, what you call internalized homophobia, and I feel like as we get more comfortable and as we meet other people and as you kind of debunk like the stereotypes of gay men and you meet other people and then you kind of get over it. But I mean, that doesn't mean that society does, I don't think, and right now, I mean, I think when you say the gay community or gay men, it's usually this idea of like white, skinny, muscle guys, like, like, like on a float somewhere. Like that's the perception. And like Latinos, I'm like, well, I'm not that. I don't look like that. I don't, I don't want to be on a parade floor. And the whole thing is like, you don't have to, you can be a gay man and not be that. You can be a gay man and be whatever you want to be, whoever you want to be. And I think that's kind of, I think that's where we're getting to. And I mean, I think the younger generation's a lot more open to like the ideas of masculinity, the ideas of gender, the ideas of like we've never seen before. I think so. And I think as we move forward, it's really going to be like this, it's going to be so blurred and people won't necessarily have to identify as gay. It'd be like, well, I have sex with men and women. I only have sex with men. I'm, only into, dominant men. Like, I'm only, like, and be very open about these conversations. I think that also facilitates, like, sex and it facilitates risk. It facilitates, like, this communication that people should be having overall.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you brought that up because my boyfriend and I just came back from Texas and we were in Austin and we decided to just go see the nightlife. We don't normally go out, but I'm like, let's go check out the Austin locals. We walked in and there was a couple of guys in cowboy hats and very masculine, and my boyfriend who's used to West Hollywood looks over and goes, "Oh my God, they look so macho." I'm like, well, macho is not just for the straight world. Mm-hmm. There's machos in the gay world too. It's like we're men, and you have to remember that. It's pretty cool. So before we move on to talk about positive impact, if you could recreate like the program to open people up in the Hispanic community to talk more about sexuality, what would your program be like?
If I could redo, I took a lot of kind of the making of this program, so I don't know if I could recreate it. But I definitely, personally, I would have, I think, we're in a medical plaza. Like, I love seeing, kind of sexual health things in a storefront, like in a downtown area where it's just like kind of integrated into the community. I feel like we're integrated in the community here, but that is one aspect of it that I'm just like, it'd just be nice to have just people walking by all the time, or just people seeing that, you know, and I try to recreate that or do that when we're at events and things and being, you know, or supporting people or doing things, you know, or like reaching out and collaborating with other agencies. But I think that's one of the things, you know, I think we're located in Santa Ana. It's pretty central to kind of to everyone. But that's one of the things, I mean, I think I would change, you know, but, outside of that, I feel like I think we're, you know, we gain, you know, insight from our clients. We gain insight from like the community members. We gain insight from, you know, from the agency itself, from CDC. So so I mean, but overall, I feel like the team here has done like everything possible to like just integrate ourselves and be, you know, it's because I mean, we're pretty much we're when you think of the other agencies, everybody's been here for a while, you know. We're on a kind of on a main street in Santa Ana where everyone's on the street. You know, APIT is across the way. The county clinic is a few blocks down. The center is a few blocks down from there. So we're all kind of on this strip, you know, of and it's just, you know, it's just kind of being I've said this a lot, but being intentional and knowing that, you know, that there's something for us here, you know, that they know.
I think you hit the mark. I think the more, because that's definitely been my goal along the way since I started this podcast and since I started doing public speaking, which is, I'm going on 15 years now, is the more out there I am as a Latino who's HIV positive, and the more I say the word SIDA, and the more I say VIH, the more accustomed people will get to it. And we have to use the words, and we have to talk about sexualidad and sexo and homosexuales, and the more you use it in a positive content, people will start hearing it, as long as we're not ashamed of doing it.
Definitely.
And I think that's one of the key points. Okay, so let's move over and talk about positive impact, because we kind of left that behind.
Yes.
Now, you were telling me before we started that this is not just something you can start off on your own. This you went through a program, you got certified. Tell us about all that.
So with CDC and their, you know, they choose pretty much like specific agencies to give money to, and with that comes this kind of these requirements of like, you know, these are the services that like, or you tell them these are the services that I want to provide, and they say yes or no, and then they're like, well, you chose to provide these, so now you need to get certified. You know, you need to be able to facilitate these groups. You need to be able to, you know, facilitate this, and you know, there's a lot of like help and collaboration, because they're the ones that they want you to succeed. Right. CDC wants you to succeed. Your agency wants you to succeed. The community wants you to succeed. So we definitely so part of it was this group, creating this group. So this group is specifically for those that are HIV positive. It is, the groups are held in, kind of 5 sessions. Like, there are 5 sessions. It's kind of, we call a cycle. And, you know, it's aimed at our population, which is Latino men who have sex with men, 18 to 49 years old. And I mean, not that if you don't fit the spectrum of 18 to 49 year olds or Latinos, you could still be part of the group. It's not, you know, and sometimes there's maybe...
You don't card anybody.
Yeah, we don't, you know, we don't. But the thing is that because we're funded for it, like a certain kind of an amount of the population that gets it has to be reflected, you know? And there is a need for this. I mean, as soon as we came out and we like kind of posted this, we started getting calls from people outside of Orange County, like from like San Diego, like, you know, like I live in La Jolla, I live in like Oceanside, and I want to kind of come over and do this group with you guys. I'm like, you know, so there hasn't been, you know, and I think sometimes, you know, so it's just us going through this training, learning how to kind of how to facilitate it, and then also adapting it, because, you know, CDC has a way of what they think, you know, when people are going there, some of the people that are trained to do this, are going to communities where it's predominantly white. Right. Predominantly, you know, they might be in areas where, there's a higher rate of, you know, of women affected by HIV, or couples, or heterosexual men, you know, depending on where it is, depending on, you know, what your community looks like. So they're kind of teaching you this basis of this program, and then it's your job to adapt it to the community that you're going back to.
Positive impact is not a solely gay HIV positive
No,
situation.
No, it's not. So the overall, they what they call the program is healthy relationships, and a lot of agencies still call it like healthy relationships. The one run at AIDS Services Foundation, they still call it. And at AIDS Services Foundation, they have different groups. So they have a group for heterosexual women, they have groups for heterosexual men. They have groups with gay men, and sometimes they integrate even trans women into so they have different groups because they're providing this bigger service, where we're just, in a sense it's smaller, and we've decided, when we came back and we're like, we could continue calling it healthy relationships like everybody else, but the group is not specifically about relationships. It's about relationships in the broader term. The relationship with yourself, the relationship with your family, the relationship with your partner, or the relationship with your sexual encounters, your hookups, things like that. Yeah. It's to empower you to have healthy relationships versus people thinking it's like, oh, well, this program is for people in relationships or to better your relationships, or I need relationship advice. And it's like, so we thought, I'm like, you know what, let's rebrand it. We kind of branded ourselves, so we need to brand kind of all of our projects. So it's taking input. We took input from the actual clients that ran the first cycle. We just finished our second cycle, and it's just been, just kind of working with it and doing this, and seeing that, however we need to do it. The flyers on one side in Spanish, one side in English, even the wording, it's very kind of intentional. We don't want to kind of give too much information, and, you do need to sign up for it, and you can always, just call us, or on the flyer there's Gabe's information. Gabe is the facilitator for the group.
Which Gabe was going to join us, but he has a client, so he can't join us. So.
Yes. So I help facilitate the group with him. So I outside of managing the program itself, I like to incorporate myself into all aspects of it. Sometimes you come in here, I'm testing. Sometimes I'm at an event. Sometimes just here in the office doing the others, the business side of the paperwork, the boss side. The boss side. But it's I think it's very, I think as someone who just believes in this and wants to succeed, but this, and it's also, I think, there is other groups who have flyers and everything, but we really want to promote it. It's been this kind of where there are agencies, all over who might have groups like this, but either you have to be a client or you have to know about it, but it might not be on their website, or they might not kind of talk about it. And a lot of times agencies are people will say, well, it's for the discretion of our clients. And I think sometimes as agency, we might be contributing to the stigma that goes with HIV by making it, So we want to, on our social media, we're very active on Instagram, so you can follow us, radar.oc, and also on Facebook. And we create we have Manny, our tester, he creates a lot of new content for us, and every week we have at least one post that focuses on HIV positive individuals, because a lot of times when you're focused on prevention, education, and treatment, it's morally focused on prevention.
Right. And it can get a little boring.
And it can get boring. Yeah. And then people they're well, and then it makes people feel well, I have HIV, so maybe, did I fail? Or why aren't they, why isn't there something available for me? So that's also very, for us to be negative or positive, we're all in this together, and this program is you can, and a lot of the issue is that a lot of times you're diagnosed and you come in to do your thing, but you never, people, they meet with their case manager, they meet with their linkage coordinator, they meet with for services, but they don't meet other people. There necessarily isn't a space for them to meet other people. And I think a lot about men overall, and you're already kind of, in a sense, a lot of times as gay men, we might be isolated from, sharing our experiences with our family, sharing even with our friends that we came out later in life. So it's and then, you think of the time, especially, when you're younger, it's you have so many kind of things on your plate, and then throwing your status on top of it, and not being able to share it with some people, so even bringing that space together for guys to meet each other and see and just teach each other, how they're coping, and see, outside of learning what we're bringing. And a lot of the times, we're very intentional, and, we're very open, like, ask us questions, and a lot of, they ask, are you guys positive, and I'm very open as someone who works in this field of being, like, I'm HIV negative at this point in my life, but that doesn't mean I'm not at risk. And because I'm doing this work doesn't mean that,
Right.
I cannot acquire. There's a lot of people that working in this field still acquire HIV because they're at risk. We're all at risk. There's no way to be, we can be safe and we can be preventative, but there's no, and at the end of the day, I'm like, me and Gabe are here to facilitate this group, but you're an expert, we're all experts, and we're all here to teach, you learn from each other. We're here to provide this conversation and kind of this platform and these, like, these lessons that it's nothing out of this world, but a lot of the times you just don't have a space to talk about
right.
it. When you don't have a space to, like, be like, well, I had this, this instance with this person, or even just like, how did you tell your mom? Like, how did or like, and sometimes it's like a double come out, like, like not only do they not know I'm gay, but they don't know I'm HIV positive, or like back and forth. And sometimes it's just kind of reliving that, like, well, I came out, at 15, 18, 25, and then they're like, well, now I'm HIV positive and I want to tell someone. Yeah. And a lot of times, like, as Latinos, we're so integrated with our families, so it's hard to, and I mean, if you're sharing a house with them and, you have you have medication, you have things like paperwork and things, it's hard. Right. And it's like navigating these things and knowing that somebody else is going through something similar, or if you already went through it and had a hard time, and then you just need someone to, like, reassure you. It's like, hey, I've been there, it's like, so even just creating these spaces. So this group is, I've run groups before, but this is a different type of group, I just don't think that there's been that type of space before, right. So it's great to kind of take part in it. And, at the end of the day, like I said, I'm not, as much as they might be learning from us facilitating the group, we're learning so much more.
Well, I'll let folks know, and I think I talked to you about it. I went through the healthy relationships cycle with at ASF with Mario and Jonathan. Hello, Mario and Jonathan. And I think I was one of the first groups that went through it. So we were kind of all learning. Mm-hmm. And I think in our group there were gay and straight married men. So some had not revealed to anybody. Some the wife didn't know. I was one of the people that everybody and their mother knows about me, but not everybody's as, I always say, they're not as dumb as me that I just tell everybody everything. Because you add to that, again, we go back to and I think people forget that, the cultural and the religious aspect of the Latino community added to the being gay and being HIV positive. Yeah. It's so traumatic because it's two sides of the wall, and it's so traumatic to try and figure that out. So for you guys to offer this safe place to say, okay, let's work up your nerve or your courage to tell your family. Mm-hmm. Let's give you solutions rather than keep adding to the problem.
Exactly.
I think that's really cool. And not to mention the fact that impacto positivo in Spanish, that doesn't necessarily say you're positive. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's underlined there, but let's make this a positive impact. Let's make it something good for you. Mm-hmm. Let's see how HIV is gonna work for you instead of against you. Does that make sense?
Exactly. Yeah. No. And I think that's the biggest part of it. Like, and the whole thing is that, the group itself isn't like necessarily for you to, to get the nerve or the courage to come out, but to identify if you want to and when you want to, that you're able to do it, because, there's people that know that, like, if their family might kick them out, their living situation might be jeopardized, their relationship might be jeopardized, and implications that might be a lot harsher for them to deal with, and know that, maybe at this point in my life, I'm not going to tell people, and then be okay with it, and then have people that are like, you know what? I'm open to tell everyone my story and everything. And it's nice to have a room of different individuals who are able to kind of to share those experiences, and then also have someone, I'm sure, I don't know how long ago your group was, but who have a little more experience and have been positive for a longer time and are an advocate and are talking about it and seeing someone like that, and then seeing someone who maybe was just diagnosed, a few months ago, a year ago, just started medication and see, just kind of
Right.
see the, or even see, someone who's not in a relationship and someone who is in a relationship and seeing how, how they told their partner, things like that. It's navigating. And I feel like the group itself is never like, well, this is what you need to do and this is how you do it. It's more of like, well, this is the way that you might build your road with what we give you, and this is the way that you might build your road with what we give you. So it's creating your own positive impact in your own.
Because I remember my group, I'm going on 17 years survivor now. I've been in a relationship 5 years. I think I was in a relationship 3 years at the time. My whole family knows. I've been an advocate for about 15 years. I do podcasts. I do video blogs. Mm-hmm. So I've crossed all those lines in English and in Spanish. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I found really cool about the cycles, or the cycle that we went through, the sessions, was that we each brought our blueprint and said, this is my blueprint. You can borrow it. And then people were able to layer them up and go, like you said, this is what works for me. Let me take pieces from everybody and put them together. Because I even learned some stuff about me and about when to actually pull back a little bit and go, okay, this is not the time for me to be Mr. HIV advocate. Like this isn't the right place. Maybe you should just shut it up down a little bit.
Yeah, there's definitely, an aspect to like that we teach about like the kind of the stress that comes from, even the stress that comes from it, or even things that might, that you might look into, if it's out of like somewhere where it's not in your control, or, or there's, or even who the person might know, or, even looking at things from kind of also the outsider perspective and seeing, like there might be a time and place for you to do it, and there might be a time and place where you don't want to do it, and it's fine. Like, it's like, as an advocate doesn't mean that like 24/7, 70, like, like all the time that you're
Get
doing it.
Get off the soapbox for a little bit.
Yeah, no, and some people need a break, and something that we also kind of instill in our, it's like, I feel that sometimes with anything, if you're expected, because you're part of a community now, or you're part of, something, that you have to be the educator. And I don't think that's everyone's role. I really don't think that, I feel that there's people who want to do it, and there's great people that do it, but it doesn't have to be this responsibility of you trying to teach everyone. Just because sometimes they feel like this, with new partners or with new things, and it's like, it can be very draining for them to go through their own thing and then also try to get people to understand and then answer these questions about really ignorant questions that come about that people, that people bring out in you. And I feel like it could be with anything, not just with HIV, I'm like you. I'm like you in the sense of anything that I go through, anything that I'm a part of, I talk about with everyone and I answer all the questions. And sometimes I'm like, you know what? Probably shouldn't have started this conversation, on an airplane sometimes, oh, what do you do for a living? And I look at, what we've talked about or the person, and then I'm like, I work in public health. And it's not, it's a short answer and it's true, but I might not want to get into it that day, or I might see that they probably wouldn't, or I've gotten really bad reactions sometimes. So I'm like, you know what, if I want to indulge and I want to get into this conversation with you, or I see that this conversation is a valid thing, then I'll do it. But
cool. Yeah, I definitely think, and I encourage anybody listening, if you, wherever you are in the country, if there's a healthy relationships program near you, do it. It's definitely something worth trying. You mentioned a little bit that more so than them learning from you, you're learning from them. What has been one of the biggest things that you've learned from the different cycles you've been through? Just kind of, I guess how different it looks for everyone. Usually, we think of, and even as providers, I'll say this, that, as the numbers come out with there's kind of an image that people want to see, people affected by HIV to be. They want it to oh, they're low income, not educated, don't have access to all of these things. Well, yes, there might be, but there's everywhere.
the risk is out there, and just because you're educated, just because you're rich, or just because you work in the medical field, or just because it doesn't, and the diversity kind of in everyone's experience is just been so great for me to see and to experience. And then knowing that, that just, the nature of, sometimes these groups, can be, you're sharing a common experience, but I feel like with these groups, specifically with our cycles, has been, that you create this, we just have this nature of, as Latinos, when we're with each other, to treat each other like family, or even have those dynamics of, getting closer than you do with some people, and just and I'll say this, and I've said this, sometimes when we go through things, they tell us about, to keep, some sort of distance from clients and things and people, right. And this professional nature. But as Latinos, it's it doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. At these groups, it's just it's this thing that it's so innate in us to as we know it, we see people like us, and we know each other, that we just kind of just come together. And it's a very, for example, this project overall, we go to some clubs and bars, and when we go, the owner or the promoter comes out and gives us a hug and a kiss, and it's there's clubs and bars that I would go to owned by white people that would never hug me or kiss me ever. It's not, but it's in our nature just to do so, just because. So the cultural aspect, really, I think, ingrains us together, brings us together. And, and I've learned so much from experiences. I really can't pull one out of, me, but seeing just everyone's kind of personal story, and people just kind of, seeing that it looks so different for everyone, and seeing that, that some people, every experience makes people stronger. And the strength that all of these clients have, is something that I feel that you just, I don't know if I would have, as a provider, I'm on the other side of it. As someone who's HIV negative, I'm on the other side of it. But I don't know, you never know how you would react, and you can't, I can empathize, but I will never know that struggle. But seeing other people struggle is really, it's really moving, and it's very, and when we talk about it, and they ask me questions about, if I would ever, they ask me, they're would you ever date an HIV positive person? I'm of course I would. I'm right circumstance, right person, definitely. It's, to me, as someone, even who's in this field or even out of this field, to me, it's never been an issue. And they're well, why don't other people think like you? And I'm I don't know.
Because we have to educate them.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'll tell you this much: from the time that I met you, when I was first, because I think I've talked about it on the show, it was through you guys that I got my certification for testing and counseling. Mm-hmm. So thank you very much for that. Mm-hmm. And it was you that I came and talked to the first time. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you this much: your energy and the way you express yourself is very different from then to now. There is this grounding, you're seeing HIV or the gay community in through another eyes. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but which is really cool, because I feel like coming into the job and then not going through the cycles with everybody, because I'm sure you have to learn something new every time.
Oh, definitely. You
just seem more I get it.
Yeah, no, and every time that, a new group, new people, new clients, and it's just you kind of, you acclimate to, and it helps everyone, and pretty much, and it's not something that you prepare yourself for. You're well, I'm gonna start facilitating this group, and but as you do it, you just, you gain this, this, and it's different. As the project started and everything, and my focus had always, mainly been, you're put in, these outreach and these testing, and the previous job that I had was more of the, how do we prevent HIV? And it wasn't as kind of well-rounded. I mean, kind of once we tested you're positive, you went over to another, you started working with different people, and this program itself is pretty much full circle, Right. You got tested here, you see your linkage to care, person here, you have the groups here, like everything is here, so we don't have to kind of outsource. So I have gained the spectrum of like what services look like, what, a lot of things that I didn't see before because it was just testing and condoms and groups to prevent. But where now, yes, that's a big part of our work here, but it's also the working with HIV positive individuals, with like linking them to care, even re-engaging them into care, having these conversations and seeing kind of, seeing all sides of it, because a lot of times the introduction to this field is always from like a prevention standpoint, I feel. And while prevention is great, in order to eradicate, to stop the epidemic, is for us, yes, education, but also, keeping, supporting and keeping people on medication and having them a space, to have interactions, to not feel isolated. The big, like, taking away that stigma, and seeing when you're contributing to the stigma. Like, and it's very, for AIDS Walk, we had, our prevention group, which is called OMG, Orange County Gay Men's Group, which we house here. Have their booth, have their table, have, pens and have water bottles, and then also have the positive group have one. We had a positive impact, table with the tablecloth and the information, and being like, just like they're passing out condoms and they're passing out everything, we're passing out condoms, we're passing our flyers, we're talking to people about it, and seeing that, if we're not normalizing it, nobody else is going to normalize it for us either. So to me, that's been a big part of me coming into this, like, and not only thinking about prevention, but also thinking about support, treatment, and all of that. And it's
I love it. I think it's really great that once you
you
become positive, to go from prevention to empowerment.
Definitely.
Because we're not, as a positive man, I'm not worried about prevention for me anymore, but I want to get empowered. And I tell you, after all these years of being positive, I'll be 17 in September, I still need empowerment once in a while. I still need to remember that I'm a valuable part of the society, and I'm still part of the community, and that I'm not dead. So that's really awesome. Okay, so we're running out of time, but before we go, let the folks know if they're listening and they're in Southern California, where to go, what to do, how do they get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, so we're located here in Santa Ana. We're located on 17th and Fairview, where it turns into Westminster. So we're kind of on this kind of scope of Santa Ana, almost Garden Grove. So we're located at 2708 Westminster Avenue. We're in Suite 110. We're in a kind of medical plaza. It's a suite. You can see us off the street. And kind of best way to contact us would be the number here, which is 714-868-5601. And maybe you could put some notes on there, just so with the information. My name's Javier, but you could definitely kind of contact us through there. Also, social media is great. Great. We are always on it. We're always posting things. We're very active. So if you look at us on Facebook, it's radar.free HIV testing, or if you just type in radar free HIV testing, it'll come up. Also, like I said, on Instagram, radar.oc. So that's kind of the best way. And if you follow us on social media, it's easier to see kind of where we're at. We do 2 Taco Tuesdays a month at Velvet. We do different clubs and bars, and just kind of where people invite us, we'll go there, we'll table, we'll test, So yeah, so those are kind of the best ways. You can come in, you can call us. We're kind of a walk-in basis. We're open 6 days a week, from noon to 8, Monday through Friday. So we have pretty long hours, and then Saturdays from 9 to 3. So we're here. Don't need to call in before, but if you want to, definitely. I know sometimes it's hard to come into a place to ask about the services or to get tested, but you could contact us through there. If you look at, we post our flyer, and the flyer should be on all our social media things. But you can contact Gabe. He has a work cell phone, and people can text him too, and people kind of text him also. Just I mean, this kind of new era of communicating, you know, it's like, maybe not, I mean, I feel like email still works for some people, but definitely, like, it's easier to describe your phone and text someone. Yeah, exactly. So, you can always contact Gabe. His number is, area code 949-278-7025. You can call or text him. He's great kind of at getting back to you. Or if not, you can always just give us a call. It's just like,
well, part of the tradition of my show is, before we go, is to just send out some words of wisdom to the listeners. As somebody who is on the provider side, what can you tell them? What words of wisdom would you throw out at us?
Words of wisdom? I would say, know that these services are available and that you can utilize them. Upstairs. Sorry. Sorry about that.
But, you were live in the office?
Yeah. Someone just walked into the office, wrong office. But, so I would say that these services are available for you. Use them, call us, ask us about what we do, how we do it, we're here to serve you. Like, at the end of the day, I feel like it is our responsibility to serve the clientele. And, a lot of people think that, they're bugging, or that they're not, or that these things aren't available, or that they need insurance, or that they need, an ID, or that they need certain things to come here. Testing and all of our services are completely free, and we don't ask for anything to be provided because of the way that we're funded. And if they're, and just utilizing us for what you need, right. It's just like, if you just need support, if you need whatever it may be. So just and know the agencies that are in your area and kind of what services are available and what things are not available. And, asking to be referred to other places. I think a lot of the times it's intimidating to kind of walk into a place. Right. And as a provider, sometimes you forget that, and and I like to, oh well, I always ask, how did you hear about us? And they tell me, or sometimes it's just like, well, welcome, we hope you you come back when you need us, and it's this kind of, so I would say just kind of know what's around there, and know what services are available to you. A lot of times I think right now we have 7-8 different types of condoms available. They're all free. We have lube. We have things, and it's and these are all for the community. It's not, it's this thing where people forget that, these are your tax dollars at work, and we want to give we want to give what we have, and we want to be able to empower people, and we want to be able to, just do what we need to do to get a hold on the epidemic, and know that people, awareness and just integration, and education, and all of these things that we need to do is just, it comes from all sides of it. You have to be receptive to it, but you also need to seek it. So we can do as much as we can to go out there, but then you have to meet us halfway there. You have to meet us halfway there. But yes, so awesome. I would say empower yourselves and kind of seek out the services in your area, and whether it's HIV or something else, but definitely.
Cool. Thank you, Javier. Well, thank you for talking to us about positive impact.
Yes. Thank you.
We miss Gabe, but I'll have to come back and sit down with Gabe.
Definitely.
His side of
Gabe could definitely give you a different side of it.
We'll definitely get two sides of this. So for everybody listening, all the information will be on my Facebook page, the flyer, the information, the radar Facebook page. I'll put all that on there so you guys can check it out. If you're in the Southern California area, you can contact this office. If you're anywhere else in the country, then find your local HIV service provider and see if they have the Healthy Relationships program. If not, have them go after it. For now, I want to thank everybody for listening. Thank you, my producer, Mr. Kevin Moyers. Please follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Little Mexican, LALMESICAN. If you want to email, which I like emails, you can find me at DanielGGarza@hotmail.com, DanielGGarza@hotmail.com. If you want to be on the show, just drop me a line and let me know what subject you want to talk about, and we can have you on the show. For now, I want to thank Javier. Thank you, Javier, for being on the show.
Thank you.
And for everybody, this is Daniel Garza saying, hey, put it together.
So
Subscribe to Put It Together on iTunes, Stitcher, and at abnormalentertainment.com/putittogether. Find Put It Together on Facebook and tweet Daniel at Lil Messican, LILMESICAN. And for more podcasts, comics, books, movies, and more, head to abnormalentertainment.com.
You've been listening to the Abnormal Entertainment Network.